Okay, I am recording now, so have a great session. I'm muting everybody as well. And then you need to unmute yourself, whoever is speaking.
Okay, here I go. So welcome to the webinar of the Social and Political Cohesion domain. My name is Marjolaine Bert. I work for the European Commission's Joint Research Center, and I am moderating this webinar today. This domain has a very rich set of disparate challenges that range from protecting the vulnerable to fake news, social unrest, protection of our democracies, and new solidarities, whatnot. So we decided, instead of having one speaker, to invite a number of people to talk and give insights so that the people that are registered to address the challenges can be inspired. The way it will work is that I will ask each of the speakers a question, and so they will answer that question. So the first speaker is Silvio funtowicz. He's a professor at the University of Bergen in Norway. And my first question to him is, Silvio, this domain is about social and political cohesion, but I sense somehow that there is a sort of assumption or maybe desire that we can continue with the normality that we are accustomed to. And my question to you is, can we assume this, Silvio?
Good evening. I'm Silvio funtowicz. I'm speaking from Milan. I hope this time will work well, and it will be then put into for people to see. Now, I think this is an important question. I hear everywhere, not only here, but on the street, but on TV, that people say, when can we go back to normal? Meaning, when can we go back to the pre-COVID normal? Now, what I want is just briefly ask the question. The first is it possible to return to the pre-COVID normal? And second, even if it is possible, is it sensible to go back to the pre-COVID normal? As you know, there are good reasons to assume that even if we go back to some type of normality, that will be a conditioned normality. There will be medical reasons, there are socioeconomic reasons, there are other type of reasons why it will not be the same normal as it was before. Now, the question I want to ask is it sensible to go back to the normal? And the reason I'm asking the question is that if you remember, just a few months ago, we were talking about climate and ecosystems disruption or catastrophes imminent. We are talking about loss in biodiversity. We were talking about unfulfilled sustainable development goals. We were talking about problems about growing socioeconomic inequalities. We were talking about weak democratic institutions, and we were talking also about, authoritarian political temptations. And it seems that now we can go back to a kind of normality, ignoring that those challenges were not resolved. And I would say that because of the crisis in the the COVID crisis, perhaps those challenges are even more difficult to confront. Now, the question, this is my answer to this question about should we return to pre-COVID normal if we can, my answer is we shouldn't. Because this COVID disaster emergency is also an opportunity. So we have to see this as an opportunity to try to address the challenges that are not resolved, and that we were talking, our conversation was about that a few months ago. You see, historically, emergencies, disasters are an opportunity for change. The 1755 earthquake in Lisbon was an important element in the establishment of the European Enlightenment. So let's think that this disaster is an opportunity also because, change is always a tragedy. But compared with the tragedy of the COVID situation or disaster, perhaps is worse the change. Now, we have been talking and question, and with this I will finish, is what should we do now? What should be done? And I would argue that more important to think about what, the result, the end result, we should think about how and by whom, meaning a process. And I would suggest that if we can construct an inclusive, plural, and fair process, then we should focus in it and just we shouldn't worry about an unknowable result or product. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Silvio. I will now give the floor to Bruna de Marchi. Bruna de Marchi is a sociologist, and she's an associate professor also at the University of Bergen in Norway. So Bruna, I'm following up on the insights Silvio just offered. And I'd like to know from a sociologist perspective, and it is not any sociologist perspective because you are a sociologist of disaster and mass emergencies, how vulnerable and how resilient are we? And what does this mean when we think about strategies for social and political cohesion?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Angela. Very important question, and try to just point a few points and tentative answers. I would say that the first vulnerability, which appeared very clearly in this situation, was a kind of difficulty to register the idea that there was a very serious threat, which is normally a common attitude among people. But in this case, I would say that it was an attitude of the institutions as well, kind of really a difficulty to admit, to register that, of course, this was a totally new situation and it was a phase change and we could not proceed with business as usual. And this was a vulnerability which kind of generated a kind of denial and a consequent delay in taking measures which were necessary for preparation and for response. So especially regarding to the health services, but not only. So consequently, there was a kind of a chain reactions of vulnerabilities and delays, which as a consequence, had that when the measures were finally adopted, they had to be taken very suddenly, and they had to be even stricter than they could have been if there were a more prompt response. So the countermeasures, of course, were taken also to protect the economic system, broadly speaking. So just to ease the situation in economic terms, to defend the chain of production, to convert some lines of production to other necessary needs. But I think that the great challenge is the social system as a whole. So how does the social system as a whole respond to the kind of measures that we are taking, and especially with physical distancing? And I insist on physical distancing because I think that this social distancing label is totally misleading. And this is precisely what happened, that the instruction, the regulation, either mandatory or recommended, were to keep at a distance. So to separate, to isolate, to just be distant. So what happens? This is goes exactly counter what people tend to do in situations of crisis. Because what people tend to do is to consolidate their social networks, and also create new social networks which provide aid, practical aid, and also emotional support. So and of course, this is even more important for those that are those that live in the most difficult situations, like the elderly, for example, or violent homes, or disabled people. So actually, all of a sudden, the instruction was against, this kind of networks of social solidarity and mutual aid. But what I think, where the system started to show its resilience, and I think this is very positive observation, that people immediately developed an incredible, huge creativity, precisely in reconstructing that social closeness and social solidarity through a number of other means, of course, with the aid of the digital technologies. Because I've seen a myriad of initiatives of all kinds in culture, in mutual support, in sports, in music, in everything, like people really responding by recreating networks of mutual support and solidarity. So the question is now, this is a transition. This cannot last forever. So the challenge is, will we be able in the new normality to preserve this kind of solidarity, creativity, invention that we have been able to create and invent during the acute phase of the emergency? And of course, I think that the new normality, whichever it will be a normality different from the one we know, but with conflicts, with differences in values, in perspective, in needs and in interests. But what is important, and that we keep the ability to preserve in that new normality all the instruments and processes of democratic participation, which will make that new normality desired and desirable. So this is a solution that cannot come top down, but precisely exploiting, praising, encouraging all this capacity of self-organization that the social system has been capable of showing during this crisis. So I think it's a challenge for the future that we preserve and enhance our democratic ways of living with all the imperfections, but the new reality must be one that we construct, we build together, whatever it is, and it's possibly a desirable one and more fair and just. Of course, it's not a palingenesis, but you know, there is a lot that we can do and improve. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Bruna. I will now give the floor to Alexandra. Alexandra is a computer scientist. She also works for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And so, Alexandra, my question to you is, well, given the challenges and having heard also what we have heard from the two previous speakers, how do you think technology can help with the desirable social and political cohesion and the desirable normal?
Thank you, Angela. It's really great to be among such interesting conversations on the long term of social and political cohesion. I think all these, everything that has happened in the past weeks has shown that we are not islands, but all parts of the great continent. So more than before, we see that for better and for worse, we're really connected to one another. And another thing that we could see with this hackathon and the fact that it had raised so much interest and everybody was so compelled to come and join, and no matter what their background and no matter their situation, they wanted to help. This shows that through will and through technology, we can actually come together to talk about the things that matter to us. And in a way, we can already see how through technology we can take a next step and build new initiatives in order to engage people more and talk together and brainstorm together and find together solutions on the things that matter to us. And this is valid for the COVID, but also valid for the next steps that will come after this crisis. So I think it's very interesting to observe how technology has made us really come together and really see that we can do it. So that was non-technical, and from a technical point of view, we can see that there are many different data sets that can be used in order to tackle COVID for the social and political cohesion. Seeing all the different tasks that are involved in social and political cohesion as a challenge, we can see that not only COVID data is necessary, but in order to tackle them, there is a need for data from many different domains. In fact, the sky is the limit, basically. I would think that data from open data sources, such as the Open Data Portal or the European Data Portal, or national websites, can be used together with technology from AI to find long-term solutions, both to tackle the social and political cohesion now in terms of dealing with fake news, or trying to understand what people are feeling and thinking and what their concerns are, and dealing with those issues locally. I am personally working since more than 10 years on emotion and sentiment analysis, and I'm working in a team that has developed a system for media monitoring. And inside this application, I could see that people's concerns are so diverse in a way, but so similar at the same time. But looking at how people react to certain pieces of news, or seeing how they react to each other in social media networks, is a great indication of what their actual concerns are. Sentiment analysis exists as applications in many from different companies. So there's already open source. There are already open source systems that can be used in order to tackle the issue of sentiment analysis and use it in order to understand what different groups of people are concerned about and have communities or authorities deal with their concerns. At the same time, I know that emotion and sentiment has been used already in the research community also to tackle fake news. So especially in disinformation, usually people use very exacerbated vocabulary, so very facts, but facts that are described in a way that produces strong emotions such as fear and anger. And if we employ sentiment or emotion detection systems on the news that are being produced, we can also find cues in order to deal with fake news. There are many other existing applications that could also be adapted to the context of COVID. There are conversational agents, thinking of a world where we can bring in the technology that we already have to improve our lives and to help those who don't have family close or cannot get close to other people. It's interesting how technology from different areas like affective computing can perhaps be brought closer to the people and can help them deal with the issues that they have at the moment. Data is also really important in combination from different domains in order to determine people's well-being status and being able to address those groups that are vulnerable or that are in need. An idea could be using data from different social indicators in the different open data source platforms, and then applying artificial intelligence in order to understand, to create trends, to see which type of groups are possibly the most affected, and already bring signals to those who can deal with these issues. Of course, last but not least, I think when dealing with data, it's really important to take care of the quality that the data has. And I think in all the events that use technology and data, we really have to be careful that the data that we employ in our applications is high quality. There's transparency on how it was obtained. And more importantly, because we're dealing with social and political cohesion, I think it's important to also look at possible bias in the data. In the past years, all the algorithms that are using big data are able to understand a lot of the underlying patterns in the data. At the same time, all the biases that are in the data will then be replicated for new scenarios. So I think that's really interesting. It's a very interesting point to look at, especially in this context, and look at how we can deal with social and political cohesion issues in the context of COVID by having data that is clean and that reflects indeed what is happening in society. So those were my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for these insights in relation to computer science and more data-oriented and technology aspects of this domain. I'd like now to invite Marjolaine Bert. Marjolaine Bert is a social entrepreneur, and she has been involved in deep solidarity projects namely, she has been involved on refugees projects of solidarity. I would like to know from Marjolein, how did this crisis impair your work, and what are the opportunities you see arising? Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everyone. As Silvio said at the beginning of this conference, the current situation is a crisis, but like all the crises, it raises also new opportunities for great changes. And on the opposite of Alexandra, I have less trust in the idea that high tech will save us and will solve all our problems. And starting with that, I would like to tell you more about low technologies. So low tech, to call them more shortly, they are simple solutions addressing basic needs. And so basic needs can be food or housing or access to electricity, to water, and they are accessible for the people, and they are sustainable. It means they use local materials, renewable materials. They don't use a lot of energy. So for example, they can be objects, systems like ceramic filters to get drinkable water, or insulation for tents in refugee camps, for the tents, using the foam found inside the life jackets. But low technology, they are not only system, but they are also an approach. For example, for this COVID crisis, it means focusing more on preventing rather than in curing. For example, by strengthening the immune system, by eating vitamin C, garlic, onions, drinking infusions of thyme, ginger, echinacea. And also we can use herbal and phytotherapy instead of strong chemical medicine. So when we get sick, do not eat meat, nor dairy products, nor fat. Use diverse plants to reduce the diverse symptoms. And also, we can produce our homemade simple technical solutions to make masks, soap, withers, hydroalcoholic gel, and so on. As you said, Angela, so I've been working for about 10 years to develop international solidarity projects. And since early 2018, so since about 2 years, I have been launching Low Tech with Refugee, a project that is happening on Lesbos Island, which is a Greek island on the border of the European Union, on the border of Turkey. And on Lesbos, there is the biggest hotspot of the European Union. We call it Moria Camp. And it is a place where the migrants are hosted, registered, and sorted. And Moria Camp is a very overcrowded place. And it was built for less than 3,000 people. But now there are more than 20,000 people hosted in Moria. And they are waiting all day long in food lines and other kind of lines for hours, and they are very close to each other, not respecting the 1 meter at all distance. And there are a lot of dry taps and a limited number of taps. And we count 1 toilet for 167 people, and we count 1 shower for 242 people. So there are huge issues of hygiene, but also housing, electricity, healthcare, and there are regular tragedies, fires, and so on. Just before the COVID crisis, Lesbos had another crisis related to the right-wing group attacks. They were fascist riots. People attacked asylum seekers, journalists, volunteers. The place where Low Tech with Refugees has its Low Tech makerspace was burned. The community school was burned, vehicular damage. And we were not able to work even before the confinement started. And we had to close the offices, the places where we welcome daily the asylum seekers. And the volunteer teams that come from all around the world, they left to go to their home. And some few volunteers are still on the island, but they are hiding in farms in the countryside. And so the NGOs, so some of them have left the island and others are not able to act. So it's just to testimony about this situation, which is really difficult. And the government decided to lock down the camps, so they are closed. People are not allowed to get out of Moria village anymore. And most vulnerable people have been moved to the island, to the mainland, but it's a very slow process. And there is also a clear prohibition to operate for some NGOs, and the medical NGOs are not enough to handle this situation. One young Afghan man was passed away a few days ago because he was stabbed with knives, and the day before yesterday, a Greek citizen shot with a gun on 2 refugees, which were now on the local hospital. So just to give you the big picture, the COVID is just one more issue, one more complication that highlight and show how very difficult is the situation and how vulnerable the people are already. So it's just one more layer of complication on a situation of vulnerability, which should not have faced. That's one more challenge. But with the COVID crisis, and which is also an economical crisis and not just a sanitary crisis, there is also the hope for a quick transition for big decisions that will bring more solidarity and sustainability in our politics and in our resilience. So, for example, there can be strong political choices that can be taken in the way the refugee camps are managed, and we can assess the impact of the current choices, and we could take big decisions like to evacuate the camps and transfer all the people to the mainland. There could be also investment, not only on the control of the borders, but also for the social and professional integration of the excluded populations, like the refugees, through jobs using low-tech skills, for example, related to agriculture, buildings, bicycles, and so on. The second thing would be to build the resilience on the level of the politics. So how can the EU, the states, the regions, the cities, the companies prepare the after COVID? What choice they can make as investment to support new economies based on people and based on long-term visions. Not only save the old economies and sectors like the big mainstream TV channels, airplanes, or this kind of conventional economies, but also invest in the new sustainable development sectors. And so these are opportunities for the society as a whole, including the social, economics, environmental, climate issues in the choice of investments we make. And thirdly, we could also take this crisis as an opportunity to build the resilience at the citizen level. So as a citizen, what can you do to be more informed? What can you do now at home with your hands? Like what can you make? What low-tech solutions can you build to rely less on the system, to be more autonomous for your food, for your energy access, and so on. And if you are a maker, you can also share the tutorials of the solutions you are making, and share it, for example, with the Low-Tech Lab, which is gathering diverse solutions on how to face COVID through low-tech, simple technical solutions. So there are plenty of new opportunities, new ways to see the future, the after COVID, which will definitely be not normal and not like the before COVID, and everyone can take this as an opportunity on your personal life or on your professional life as part of the society. So there are plenty of questions, and it would be very nice if you share in the comments of these videos your questions and ideas related to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marjolein, for this testimony on how this crisis has impacted further on the situation of people that are already in regimes of solidarity. I thank all the speakers for the wonderful thoughts and insights that they gave here. And I, before Alice talks, I would like to open the floor for questions. So if you have a question, please do it now, and please don't take a long time to do these questions so that they can still be answered. Thank you.
Yes, I got a question for the speakers, and there are a lot of teams and everyone participating. Do you have any practical advice for us as teams on what to do in the next few days?
Vera, we lost you, or are you done with your question? Otherwise, I will ask the speakers to answer.
Hi, sorry, did you call my name? No, right?
No, the speaker that was the participant that was asking the question, Vera Leonard, before.
Yes.
Are you done with your question?
Yes, my question was, do you have any practical tips for the teams participating?
Very good.
I guess it depends on which of the tracks you are trying to, which of the issues you are trying to solve. As I mentioned before, for the different fields, there are already existing solutions. For example, in fake news, I know that in dealing with fake news, I know there are different European projects that are ongoing or that have ended. And you can start from there to get inspired and look for further solutions to deal with fake news in the COVID-specific crisis context. And for other challenges, perhaps get inspired from the initiatives that are local, from the national hackathons that happened. And also there are different data sources that I think are a real inspiration. I'm also a techie, so I will tell you about the tech. There are different data sources, and it's absolutely fascinating to imagine solutions that build on different domains, looking at social data, looking at economic data, and matching it with COVID data to try to understand which are priorities and what can be done for different communities that might be vulnerable in this context.
Bruna, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, okay, fine. Well, again, it depends, but I think there can be a combination of putting together different resources and abilities and skills. So Alexandra and Marjolein presented two very different perspectives, but I don't think they are alternatives, because, okay, there is a lot that we can do with digital technology, and there's a lot of it we can do with the low tech. Personally, I'm not creative at all, but I was able to make a mask for myself when the mask could not be found. So I think in the meantime, I'm using the technology right now to connect to people and so on. So it's not an either or, but it's kind of combining different resources and skill and possibilities to really design and implement a new reality, which is more fair for more people.
Other questions?
There's someone who raised their hand, you can see. Janos?
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Welcome everyone. So in short, how would you like to connect all of the fields? How would you like to connect the dots? Because now everyone give us a good way how each of the fields area, how connected with each other. But every hackathons focus on only just the short term or very short period to develop the solutions. But the holistic approach can't be done in 2 days. So how can we, why ask you? Because I dreamed the similar situation platform what is already happened every day. We come together, work together from different kind of fields for sector and find the solutions. So how can we do this later? Thank you.
Perhaps I can say something.
Thank you.
I'm a bit concerned about this talk about solutions, really. And as if the type of problems we are discussing here have a simple or even complicated solution. A bit of technology, a bit of engagement, and here comes magically a solution. I think that we have serious challenges. And as you point out, the person who asked the question, we shouldn't concentrate on things that can be solved in a couple of days, in a week, or things like that. We are talking about quite important challenges, and it will take perhaps generations to address them. And perhaps we should start thinking, here we heard about systems problems, we heard about holistics and things like that. Well, we shouldn't assume that all problems have solutions, you see? And we don't need that. As I tried to say at the end of my short presentation, what is important is the process, not the solution. A process, and as I said, and I repeat, if the process is inclusive, it's fair, it's plural, then who cares about the solution? The solutions will appear, and eventually or not, because when the process starts to roll, and we'll find that the original problem perhaps no longer exists, or it is reframed, and we find new ways to discuss what is the problem, and could be eventually solutions. So I would say that this is the right moment. I mean, I will use the Greek word, this kairos. this is the right moment, because the accumulation of challenges that we had before, and where we have to add now the challenge of the COVID, then that's the right moment to start thinking about a different type of approaches and solutions and ideas about what we have to do, who has to do, and well, for whom. So that's mine.
Yes, I agree with you about the process. But how can we make open search available for everyone from around the world? Because if you develop the process, I don't know anything on another side of the globe. So how can find your process? How can I improve your process? So this is, I agree with you at all. I'm finished out. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how I think Bruna made already the point, and also it was said that I don't believe in top-down solutions. I don't believe that you have, in technoscientific silver bullets. We have to use appropriate technology. It can be low technology, high technology, but it has to be appropriate to what is essentially a political process and what is essentially a confrontation and discussion and on values. So and therefore, I believe in starting many local processes, and then those who then we see how they link together. I don't believe that this type of problems can be solved by world governments or by regulations. We have a lot of experience that these things never worked for many type of problems. So let's try something different. Let's try to support local initiatives, very diverse ones, and if they are roses, they will flower.
Thank you very much. I see Emma Jackson has put here a question about scale and impact expectations. Do you want to raise your question, Emma?
Yes, I can raise my question.
Go ahead, please.
So I think it moves on perhaps from the answer that was just given, but it is this idea about timescales, and are you looking for specific timescales and expectations on number of participants, etc. My experience is that often these things have to be tried and tested in smaller scales, and then the process allows you to learn and develop. Maybe it's just been answered.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Danae. I'm from Greece, and I wanted to ask Marjolein the question I wrote down actually. If you think that a technological solution or any other strategy would help the situation as it is for now, or of course I think totally agree that the best solution is to reduce the population in the camps. But given the situation, would you recommend that any available or rapidly developed solution would give would help the everyday's life, the people's everyday's life there, and make it more safe also? Thanks.
Thank you, Danae, for your question. As you say it yourself, the main thing would be to have less people in these overcrowded camps. That for sure would have the biggest and quicker impact. And yes, as well, there would be many other ways to face in a safer way the current crisis. And like I said, there is a lack of hygiene in the camp, so we could work on better hygiene system, commodities. And of course, the health condition of the people make them more vulnerable to the virus. So if they would have also better housing and food and everything, also of course less stress and anxiety in general, of course they would be also less vulnerable to the virus. So there could be plenty of actions to labor the current issue in the camps. And the answer can be a high-tech one, and it can be a low-tech one. The high-tech is much more expensive than the low-tech one, and is not always taking in account the environmental issues, while the low-tech one, by definition, will always take in account the environmental aspects as well. For example, if we speak about the toilets, right now the toilets, the water closets in Moria camp, they are using water, and we need trucks every day, many times a day, to make these toilets function again and be used again. And this costs a lot of money and is having a huge environmental impact. But we could develop dry toilets, separating the urine and the feces, and creating value instead of costing a lot of money and having a high environmental impact. But these kind of solutions are less famous and less used in the refugee camps in the world in general. So for now, there are plenty of low-tech solutions that we have been developing on low scale that could be developed now on large scales if they are chosen by the camp's managers. Like for the Moria camp in Lesbos, it's the UNHCR, so the UN, which is in charge of the camp, and so they are the ones that can take this kind of high scale decisions and then make a big impact. But there are plenty of examples. I mean, if you are interested into low-tech solutions fitting the situations of Moria camp as an example, but it can be for refugee camps in general, but it can also be for any kind of lifestyles. There are plenty of ideas already existing and already documented.
May I add one thing, just one point, that the situation you're describing, the refugees camps, is much widespread in other situations. Like, for example, I think in southern Italy, where people collect tomatoes or whatever, and they are, you know, in theory, they are working, in theory they should be paid and they should have protection, whereas they are treated as slaves. And I don't think this happens only in southern Italy, of course, but the situation is very similar to that of the refugees camps from what I hear. I don't see, but I hear. So just that.
Yeah, thank you for making this point, Bruna. Indeed, I was speaking about the situation as an example of one place, of one project. But indeed, the issue is concerning many different populations, and we could also speak about the asylum seekers, not in the camps but outside the camps, and we can speak about vulnerable population which are not asylum seekers. And I fully agree with you about the fact that this was just an example of to share. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Marjolein. We are approaching the time limit, and I would like now to give the floor to Alex, because he's the main lead of this set of challenges, and he has some important guidance to give to the people that are registered as teams to address the challenges that are enlisted under the domain. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was really enjoying this conversation and this webinar. So the speakers before me told everything. I think there is nothing else to add. Just to announce that we are very proud that so many people are interested in this domain because this domain has second position on this hackathon, and this means something. I think the solution and ideas which will come after the hackathon will have a real impact also on the real life, because not just because the European Union is decided that these ideas will bring to the life, but also because the companies. Because the company is already looking for the people, for the ideas which they can use, use in the some development and in teams with which they can connect. So this hackathon will have real impact also because the team who works on organization of this hackathon is very strong. So I have in this domain which are managed, I have the people from the really top position and the people from the many different organizations from all the Europe, which I even know that they exist. So it's very interesting for me, and I think this is the spirit of European Union, where we could connect to each other and solve some problems together. So for that reason, I think this hackathon will have a lot of impact on the work and the live in the European Union. And I hope that is not the only hackathon we will organize. I think this is just a beginning, because now we have everything developed, and now we know how to manage this. And not just this, in this hackathon, also the other countries are involved, not just European one. So for that reason, this is something global from European also, some initiative who can live also on the global side. So for that reason, I'm very excited about what will be the result of this hackathon. And I'm really looking forward for these ideas. Of course, I hope that our domain will have some winner ideas, but we should wait on the results. But anyway, I should thank you all of the organizer of this hackathon as well, and all of team of which manage this domain. And right now we have a lot of work with the team and mentor coordinators. And of course, I should also thanks to the challenge lead and to the organizer of this hackathon, of course, for the most important things that European Union is recognized this hackathon as one of the solution, as Silvio say, one of the approach which we can use. Okay, maybe we will not find the solution which will just quit the corona and or save the economy, but as Silvio said, the approach is and the way is this what we are looking for. So okay, I think I'm very excited about today and tomorrow, and we see what will happen. And just again, thank all of you that you are all guests who is stay with us, even if we have a little bit of troubles on the beginning, but almost every guest who joined this hackathon, who joined this webinar, stayed till the end. What's that mean? That our guests are really popular, and thanks our guests and speakers again to be part of this webinar in our domain. So thank you again. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you all very much. Thank you again to the speakers. We actually were recruited to this at a very short notice, because it was just in the end of last week that we start talking about this. And And thank you for your great insights. And I wish everyone that is registered in Teams to be inspired and to come up with interesting ideas about how we go about these challenges. Thank you, everybody. I just want to be confirm that this is going to be available in the YouTube, and perhaps whoever unfortunately could not ask questions right now can probably ask them there, and they can be answered in the next days. Can Elena maybe confirm that this is going to be posted in YouTube?
Yes, I confirm that.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great evening and a great hackathon.
Thank you. See you on Sunday. And,
wait a minute. I've got the applause. I've got the applause. Just give me a minute. I'll get you the applause.
Yes. Let's get the applause and say hello.
Applause. There you go. Give me a minute. There you go. Listen.
Nice, very nice.
This is the high tech. Let's do it low tech. Low tech is like this.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Sunday. Bye.
Bye.
Can I actually ask for whoever's still here to make a picture all together? Since you're still here, trying to figure out the way out.
Yes, I think I can do that. Can I do that?
Yes.
Gallery.
We can,
Yes.
like, you can, if you all can all turn on your camera, that would be the best thing to do so that we can all look at each other and take a picture all together.
See my garden.
That's even better. Let's do this hackathon with a smile. Let's see who the people are behind the behind.
How do I do that? Start video.
Hi. Yeah. Do I have to help you to start the video?
No, I've done it.
Okay.
Want me to take a picture?
Let me try to get everybody to start their video.
Can you move me onto another screen?
I cannot move you around, but I can make you. I can ask you to start your video, and whoever.
Can I stop my video and then still take the picture? No.
Well, I can still take a picture, but the whole point is that we all look at the camera together.
Okay.
And that we are, whoever is still here, that we can. I'm asking people that we can. Whoever wants to, whoever is brave enough to show us their face and then take a picture with us.
I've done one.
Angela, by the way, I really like the background. I didn't make any comment, but I love it. Okay, cool. So, whoever's still here, let's smile at the camera. Okay, I'm still missing some people that I have here. Carlos.
I'm scrolling across galleries.
You're scrolling and go, okay.
So if you scroll the screen, we'll get more people, won't we?
Yeah, but I think the issue, the people are not, there you go. The people are not turning on their cameras. Okay, I'm gonna do one more time then, and then I'm gonna let you go hack, guys, because you need to. You've got work to do this weekend. All right. Okay, all right. Took 2 pictures. Thank you so much. Have a good evening and good luck hacking.
Thank you again. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.